guys, and welcome again to Conversations with Christyna, where I have the honor and pleasure of bringing to you today Monique, Tallon. And I said it right?
You did?
Okay. I am so excited. I had the opportunity to meet Monique at the Wonder Woman Tech Conference. And you guys heard me talk about the Wonder Woman Tech Conference. It was awesome.
It was awesome.
And we
really
met
awesome.
At the end of the conference, the second day.
The second day.
And it was love at first sight. I hate to say it like that, but it was love at first sight. And I'm just so glad to be here with her right now. She wrote an amazing book. It's called Leading Gracefully. And I'm going to have her talk to us today because you guys know I'm always bringing something to you to help you in your daily lives, professional lives. And so today I think it'll help in professional life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Sure.
My audience.
Yes. So, what can I say? Where should I start? My name is Monique Tallon. I'm a women's leadership and inclusion expert. I am the author of Leading Gracefully. And my background stems from the corporate world, up in Silicon Valley. I worked up in Silicon Valley at the first half of my career. Mm-hmm. And I was in marketing. I was an events manager, and I led large scale trade shows and conferences, and loved what I did. Mm-hmm. I worked for a company that was making an impact. We were empowering people to be entrepreneurs online for the first time, really in the world.
Wow.
With eBay. And, had it going on in my mid-20s. Mm-hmm. By the age of 26, I purchased my first condo.
Nice.
And I was making six figures. I was
living the life.
The
The life we all attain to or hope to
attain to, yeah. And then at some point, I kind of started like looking around and asking myself, is this really what I want? Am I, on my purpose? Am I even happy? Mm. And the answer was no, not really. I was single. I was alone. I had a beautiful house, but I was alone. Mm-hmm. I was a little overweight. My friends were still kind of in their partying years. I wasn't really partying very much and not really living my 20s as I wanted. And I just felt like I could be doing more.
Right.
So I started doing some inward reflection, and at some point I realized, I want to do something totally different.
Wow.
I want to help people. And that was sort of all I knew. I didn't really have any idea. I knew I wanted to do something where I was helping people, making a difference, making a bigger impact, but I didn't really know what else, much more than that.
Around when was this? Like what age?
I was about 28, 29.
Okay.
So I was, kind of getting into my 30s.
Right.
And I started doing a lot of introspection, and I just went on a journey. So I had this intention of finding my purpose.
Wow.
And I started really kind of opening myself to different possibilities, started taking classes, everything from massage to holistic health to acupuncture, and just started looking and dabbling and just, exploring different possibilities.
So you went from the mountaintop, because again, everyone in our society, it is my belief in our society that we try to sojourn to this point, and everyone seems to be trying to move to this point, but you got to that point. Yep. Took a look around and said,
no,
this is not it.
Not it.
Now, how did your parents or friends handle that? Because, I know in my circle, people are still, to this day, mid-40s saying, gosh, I'm still trying to get there. And you got there in your 20s and said, not for me.
Yeah. My parents were very shocked. They were happy that I was sort of in the corporate world making good money. They pressured me to buy a house. And so I did. And then when I had all this success, but also a lot of responsibility,
Major.
I took a look around and I said, this isn't really working for me.
Right.
I have a huge mortgage, and that means I have to stay in a corporate job. And at that point, I was realizing, the corporate world is not for me. Not because, partly yes, because of the political games that you have to play and, having to figure out how to climb the ladder and, all those things. Those things were stressful, but it was more of the fact that I knew that I could do more.
Yes.
I knew that I could make a bigger impact in the world, and I wanted to make a bigger impact. And I knew I was destined for something bigger. And, at first it was just a little whisper. You kind of just ignore it and you kind of hope it'll go away. But then that whisper got bigger, kind of louder and louder. And it was to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore.
So how did you get here to the leadership piece? How did that happen, that transition from massage school to, just kind of looking around? How did you say, I can make an impact on this path? How did that happen?
So the first step was putting an intention out there of trying to find what that was going to be. Once that intention was out there, it was sort of like things started coming to me. I started meeting people, having conversations. And one day I met a woman who was taking a class at a coaching school for life coaching. And I had never heard of life coaching. I didn't even know what it was. This was 10 years ago when it was still kind of a new thing. But when she described it to me, it sounded something like I really wanted to do. So I took a class, I just went for it. And immediately after that first class, I was hooked.
It was over.
It was over. It was like, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I want to be doing.
So it found you, kind of.
It sort of found me, but that was just the first step.
Yeah. Life usually happens like that, one step at a time.
One step at a time. Then I had to figure out, okay, how do I turn this into, a career? How do I turn it into a sustainable business? So, I kind of took a leap. I left the corporate world without having much of a plan. I would not try that at home. One of my lessons learned, have a plan.
Yay, good. Thanks for sharing, right?
Yeah. And then kind of had to explore, okay, what do I want to, specialize in? What's going to be my niche? How am I going to differentiate myself? Because everybody was suddenly a life coach. And, there's
buzzwords.
There's, this buzzword flying around. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like everyone else. And because I had a corporate background and because I was a woman, especially in working in the tech industry in Silicon Valley and having gone through a lot of challenges and a lot of, kind of different experiences, I felt like that was where I wanted to give back. And that's where sort of all this stuff started happening for me, putting together my ideas and developing this book where I actually came up with a new leadership model for women.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to read this. I would suggest to you, not only those of you that are looking to kind of ride the rungs, as I say, or scale the rungs of the corporate ladder, but literally for people who are in corporate America, female corporate America. God, that sucked. I would have to take that out.
That's okay.
But women in corporate America. This book, I felt, was really, really good because it gives you an opportunity to reflect on some of the things that you've experienced. And as Monique has shared, she experienced something, and then it kind of led her to say, I can make a deeper impact. And the book, as I have been able to ascertain, is a guide. Would you say?
It is, actually. I wanted to create a book that was sort of a how-to guide, a self-coaching, manual, if you will, because like I said, I'm a coach. I'm an executive coach now. I specialize in leadership development. I work with men and women on helping them develop a more effective leadership approach. And so I couldn't just write a book saying, here's what you should do, and just let people figure it out by themselves. I wanted to write a book that allowed people to develop the skill set, so that if they don't have the budget or the means to hire someone like me, they can take this book, they can do the exercises, and they're the same exercises that I use with my high-paying clients. So people who are paying me thousands of dollars to coach them, I use these exact same exercises. And they're proven to work because I've seen the results over and over and over again with the people that I coach. So that's what I wanted to put together.
I absolutely love the fact that not only is it a guide, as she said, but it does have my takeaway was by doing the exercises, you can kind of get a feel for where you are and where you need to go, which is why I walked away saying, oh man, this is like a guide. This is something that you should keep at your desk. Absolutely. If you're at work, or that you should keep at home by the side of your bed, because there were some things in here I actually had, just the collaboration part. We all know that when we are leaders, there is a collaborative element that we sometimes miss, because as leaders, sometimes we think we need to know everything. We have to just know the buck stops here. We've heard that all of our lives, but it's not true.
It's not true.
The buck does not stop with you. If you are an effective leader, and that's the word that people miss.
That's right.
Effective leadership.
That's right.
Requires the ability to collaborate and pull different ideas and different strengths. That's why you hire the best. So you could
yeah, and I think specifically for women, there's a challenge that we face. Because of gender bias that tells us women have to work 10 times harder to prove their value. Yes. Men's accomplishments and their performance is seen as higher than women's. Yes. And so women do have to work harder to prove themselves, but we begin to believe those biases ourselves. And so what do? We take on all of the office housework. Yes. We say, I'll do that, and I'll do this, and I'll do that, right? Stuff that maybe isn't the most impactful or the most high visibility.
Right.
And we take it all on ourselves because we want to prove our value.
Right.
We want to prove that, what we can do it. We can do it 10 times better. We can take on more. We can work harder hours. And by God, somebody is going to notice that and promote me.
Right.
And this is the single biggest mistake that women make.
Period.
We put more importance on performance versus confidence and leadership.
Yeah. I was actually going to say that that's not just in the workplace. That's in life.
That's in life.
I mean, in life, and that was another thing. The book actually provides competent leadership tools for your life, not just for on the job. And that last piece that you said, confidence, that's what seems to come off as us lacking as female leaders, that we lack confidence because we are in performance mode all of the time.
And that's not what people are looking for. So there's three main factors in terms of getting promoted. It's performance, it's visibility, and it's influence. Mm-hmm. So what percentage do you think is performance?
Gosh, I probably would say 10.
That's right.
Yeah, 10%.
10%. So performance counts only for 10%, because if you're being looked at for a promotion, you better have the skills.
Right.
You better be good enough. Right. That's getting you into the gate.
Right.
The other 90% is who's seeing your work and who are you influencing? Who are those decision makers who get to see your work, right? So it's about positioning yourself for visibility, taking on higher visibility projects, stretch goals or stretch assignments, going out of your comfort zone, right? And developing relationships with the people who are going to make the decisions, who gets promoted, who doesn't get promoted. Right. But if you are buried under all these to-dos and all these tasks because you're trying to prove your value, guess what? You're not going to be able to do that. Yeah, nobody sees you.
Yeah.
And we get passed up for promotions, and we see our male colleagues, for example, who are maybe less competent or less qualified, get those promotions. And so that's where collaboration comes in, right? Instead of trying to prove our value, going back to your initial thing, it's like, let's reach out. Let's get people to take ownership.
Team up.
Right? Team up. Ask people for input. Ask people to give us feedback on the direction we're taking or on specific things so that they feel part of a bigger team.
Yes, yes.
And that creates engagement and motivation. You know, one of the biggest mistakes that we tend to make is we think that money is the main motivator.
Yes, that's
for folks. And it's actually not. No. There's studies that have been done on this, and they show that money is sort of like the third or fourth factor when it comes to motivating people. Recognition,
quality of life,
all those things, being recognized for your contribution, being acknowledged, just a thank you.
Yes.
Just a mere simple thank you can go miles for people to feel like, you know what, my contributions actually matter here.
I want to ask you about, and ladies, if you're watching, you're going to remember this, but the factor of being a leader who is labeled the B word.
Yes.
Because all of the things that you shared are things that we possess, because that's how we got in the door, right? And now when we show our competence and we are deemed assertive and combative and all of these things, how do you address that? Or do you, you do address that in the book, but how, share with everybody.
Yeah.
Until you guys get the book, you got to listen to her.
Well, that's actually exactly the reason I wrote this book, because I saw so many women falling into this tightrope it's actually called the double bind. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you're assertive, you're called the B word.
Yes.
If you're nice, you're labeled the nice girl, and nobody sees you as a leader. So we're constantly trying to figure out, do I show up more like the guys to be taken seriously, or do I show up more like a typical girl, woman, you know, a bit more feminine, so that people will like me? So we're having to choose between being respected and being liked.
Yeah, oh wow.
And that is a very difficult choice to make.
Very tough.
Because either way, you lose.
You lose, you lose.
So how do we deal with this? The first thing we do is we tell ourselves we don't have to make that choice. We can be both respected and liked. But that means, for us as women, we need to put in a little bit a different effort to how we show up as a leader. We have to bring our natural strengths, our feminine strengths, like being intuitive, our empathy, our caring nature, our collaboration, our humility, all those things that make us who we are as women. We need to not be afraid to bring that to the table.
I saw one of your YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And you were speaking to that. And what my walk away was, and I try to empower my audience, because some of us, not only have we been labeled the B word, but we've lost our femininity. And it transfers into our personal relationships as well.
Absolutely.
So we bring our job home, and we look around and we're like, oh, why am I going back to when you were in your 20s? Why am I alone with this magnificent house or whatever and this high-powered title? And I just don't have the balance. And so I really appreciate what you're sharing with people. How can someone get in touch with you?
Yeah.
If one of our audience members wants to be coached by you.
Well, I'll get to that in just a second, but I want to address what you just said, because it's so important. Part of what I share in the book are some of my personal experiences and stories, and I realized that what I had done, you know, working in the corporate world and like trying to just fit in and shun my feminine qualities, was that I had built sort of a wall, a shell, where I felt like I had to be tough, I had to be independent, I had to rely on nobody else but myself, I had to take care of myself, and that was it. That was how I was going to survive in the world. And what I realized is by doing that, I closed myself off to receiving. And in my particular case, I closed myself off from receiving love. So here I am in my 30s. I have all this stuff, but I'm alone and I'm miserable and I'm looking for, that partner, and I can't find it because I was trying to be the tough girl. And it wasn't working for me. And so when I started embracing some of these qualities and practicing some of these things that I teach in the book, I started opening myself up to receiving help from others, receiving love, support, and literally within, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months, I met my husband.
Wow.
I met my soulmate.
Right.
The person who is my, like, just my rock.
Right.
And I never thought that I was going to meet my husband. I really just didn't think that he was out there for me.
Right.
But I had to go through that transformation of coming in touch with my feminine power.
Yes.
And I realized if we can create from that place, anything is possible. So
You put feminine and power together. And I think one of the things that we end up doing is try to separate them.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that we have more power the less feminine we are.
That's right.
And I think that was represented with Hillary Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't even want to get political because there's no need, but the way that she presented herself to the world was, in my eyes, and I don't know how you guys feel, but was void of her femininity.
Absolutely. I actually wrote a blog article about this during the election. 3 things that she could have done to win or to just gain more supporters, because it was clear very early on that she was losing supporters. And I pinpointed it to this exact fact that you just made, is that she was not being authentic. Her smiles were plastic. Her messaging was disengaged with reality.
Right,
it was all about me. I can do this. I will do this.
Right.
Whereas her opponents were talking about the we. Right? The we is much more collaborative. It's
Right.
much more inclusive.
Right.
And just her voice, there were a couple of interviews I heard with her where she was more conversational, and she sounded so much more approachable and down to earth and likable. And I thought, wow, And the other thing is that I heard that in her personal life, she's actually a really funny person. That she has a great sense of humor, but you would never in a million years see that by looking at her from the outside. So she had all these great, quote unquote, feminine qualities that she wasn't bringing to the table. And I think that's why she lost the election, because she wasn't relatable.
That brings me to a question. Because there is a generational gap too.
That's right.
Because think about what you're saying. For her generation and for women of the 80s, remember those big shoulder pads? And, Kramer versus Kramer and all those things. To be the tough girl was the only way you could rise to where you wanted to go.
Women had to cut their hair short.
Right.
They had to wear suits like men with a little tie. They had to actually look like guys early on. And, I've talked to women who are now, in their 50s, let's say, who are successful businesswomen, who talk about how great it was to grow their hair long. Right. That they felt like they couldn't do that in the early days. So we have them to thank for these opportunities.
Paved the way.
Absolutely. And it's because of them that we can have these types of conversations, because I think the millennial generation really gets this stuff.
Yes.
They want to be authentic. They want to be themselves. They want to be caring and kind and empathetic and inclusive. But if they don't see their role models showing up this way, then they don't have permission to be that. And so I think it's really important for the older generation, our generation, even.
Hey, what are you talking about? No.
I wasn't saying that we're old. Hell no.
No.
Our generation, the millennial, the Gen X generation, right? I think you're a Gen Xer.
I am. Proud, card carrying.
It's up to us to pave the way for them, and I think they really get it. I think it's a no-brainer for them, but we have to evolve our leadership styles, our leadership expectations, and our work cultures to embrace what women bring to the table.
And going back to her guide, and I'm going to keep holding it up here, because she speaks to being authentic. And again, it is a guide because you have the opportunity. It speaks to those, because I'm believing that there are women who would like to retire on that upper echelon, who maybe need the book just to find the permission to take off the 1980s padded shoulders and be themselves. And then there's a call that I believe that the book asked of us, the reader, to kind of look within yourself and see what kind of leader you are and what kind of leader you want to be. So I'm believing that your book is so fantastic, just like you are, because it helps to reach both. There are still women that I run across that are in their late 50s that are thinking, man, it's just not going to happen for me.
Sure.
I'm just not going to be able to get that because I've been overlooked so many times.
Sure.
And then they have the Gen Xers, myself, as well as the Gen Zs and the millennials saying, I don't want that.
Oh yeah, and so they're opting out.
Yeah.
And they're choosing to start businesses or startups or whatever. That's not good, because we need more women's voices, especially at the top where these important decisions are made. I mean, look at the state of the world that we're in right now.
Exactly.
What would be different if there were more women at the UN, for example?
Absolutely.
Right? There's a huge conference happening at the UN, or in these big corporations, organizations where so many decisions are made that impact all of us.
All of us, yes.
Where are the women? Our voices aren't being heard. And so I always think about how we can change the world if we just embrace our feminine power, deal with some of those issues and bring our full selves to the table and not be afraid to dream big and go for those things that we know that are whispering in our ear and telling us, like, you should do this and you're meant for greatness, because we are. We really are.
We are. I thank you so very much.
Thank
and again,
you.
I definitely want to make sure that if there's someone out there that wants to yoke up with you, and how would they do that? And then also, where's the book?
Sure. So, get the book. The book is on Amazon.com. It's also in local Barnes and Nobles. So if you go to your local bookshop, you can order it there, or they might have it in stock. Okay. You can reach me at MoniqueTallon.com. And you find my information there and get in touch with me. I do a lot of speaking and workshops, and I'm going to be launching a new course on self-confidence very, very soon. So keep in touch for that.
And we're going to have her back on Conversations with Christyna when she does that. And I want you guys to definitely support her. I believe that we all need to kind of keep that village going and support each other. And so please check out her website, see where she's going to be appearing and speaking, and just reach out to her, because I tell you, it was magic when we met. It was magic. I mean, I love the book. Again, the book. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Christyna.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.